we specialized in was working with large-scale real estate developers all around the world who were building condos and resort communities and office towers and sometimes entire little towns. And they would come to us and say, okay, we got to sell these things or rent them out or lease them or whatever it is they were trying to do. So like every other marketer in the world, we would begin each one of these projects by sitting down and saying, who are we doing this for? Who's the target audience here? And trying to define them. And we used the best tools we had at the time, which was primarily demographics. We'd say, well, they're 73% male and they earn this much money and they're married or they're single or they're have this many kids, whatever. And then we'd start making assumptions about who those folks are based on that information, sometimes a little bit of sales information and other things you could call psychographic information, but primarily it was demographic profiling. So fast forward, after spending $1 million talking to those people to get them to do what we wanted them to do, buy or lease or rent, the lovely thing about the real estate development industry is I would find myself in a room with those people 3 years later because we were done. We'd sold out the condo. So I'd be standing around looking and going, who the heck are all you people? What are you doing here? You don't resemble the group of people I've just spent a year or 2 years talking to and spending $1 million of my clients' money. And it just kept happening over and over and over and over again. And then I started talking to other people who are also in marketing going, does this happen to you in other sectors? A friend of mine is a chief designer for a very large global sportswear brand. He said, yeah, you know what? Now that I think about it, we have these personas. And we're supposed to design our stores and all of our clothing and everything for these personas. And when I go and stand in our stores anywhere in the world and look around, I'm like, who the heck are all you people? You know, this persona that we've spent all this money and time thinking about. So it's like, okay, there's something going on here. We're spending lots and lots of money talking to a group of people, and then some small number of them show up, but all these other folks show up too that we didn't even know were going to come. So I sold my company. So there's the first thing we did, I guess, I wasn't supposed to do, and said, okay, how do we disrupt this demographic idea of how we look at people? Now, demographics have been around since day one. We've always looked at other people and said, are they rich or poor, young or old, male or female, gay or straight, black or white? I mean, that's just how the world works. We profile a group this way. I started looking into it and figured out very quickly after just a skim across behavioral sciences like psychology and neurology and so forth, that the only way people make a decision to do anything is based on what their values are. So neurologically speaking, for example, there's an actual pathway in your brain that it fires up. It's inside a piece of your brain called the insula. So if you make a decision about two things, you're going to choose this one and it's aligned with your values, your insula rewards you. You get a dopamine hit. And if you choose this one, you don't, right? So we're all running around thousands of times a day trying to make decisions based on what is aligned with our values. So mystery solved. Looked around the room and said, these people who don't seem like they resemble each other, they're not part of the target audience description. They were identical to each other on the inside. We were just looking at what they look like demographically on the outside. It was about their values. So I said, okay, we got to figure this out. We're going to blow up demographics. We're going to stop people from using that as a way to understand who people are. And fast forward again through 1 million surveys we've done around the world now in 152 languages. We've built the world's first inventory of values and what makes us all tick and what makes us all do everything that we do all day long.
One of the things I've found when investigating values, and I've been lucky enough to be on lots of circuits, again, similar to you speaking and meeting lots and lots of people. And it took a long time for me to even understand or articulate what my values were. Because if somebody had asked me 25 years ago, what's your values? I'd have gone, don't know. I can name 300 things. But of course, that's not what it's about. How do you hone in on your values? So when you say that you found the people had the same values, how did you, through your surveys, extrapolate what those people's values actually were? And how did they even know what they were?
Well, here's the thing about values. You're dead right. Anybody you ask about their values, they'll either have a hard time telling you what they are, or they'll lie. They'll say,
yeah, well, they'll tell you what they think it should be.
What they're trying to image of themselves, they're trying to project, right? If you ask a room full of 100 people, is family an important thing to you? They're all going to say yes, even if they hate their family and killed their mother, People will lie about this stuff nonstop. So you can't ask about values. You can't show people a list and say, here's a bunch of words that we think sound like values to us. Which ones sound like values to you? It's just business poetry if you do that. We're just pricking pretty words that we think are all nice and warm and fuzzy. So what you do is you ask a million people in their own language what gets them up in the morning and what their hobbies are and how they spend their time and what worries them and what keeps them up at night. And do they drink? And do they drink too much? And what causes them to drink? And when you listen to a million people tell you stories about their life and about all the decisions that they make all day long around all kinds of different factors, you start to hear patterns in the noise. So after all those million long form surveys we did, we took a look at the data. You kind of dump it all out in the dining room table and you sort it into piles, just like Halloween candy. You're like putting it. So it's like there's a whole bunch of full size chocolate bars. That's one pile. And a whole bunch of people are talking about bubble gum. That's another pile. It turns out there's 56 piles. There's 56 things that drive everyone all around the world to do everything that they do all day long. Now, here's the kicker. There's 56 values in what we now call the Valuegraphics database, but each one of them shows up in people's lives in a whole bunch of different ways. So belonging, for example, very, very important value in many parts of the world, not all parts, but in many parts of the world. But there's 912 definitions for belonging. So we have more than 8,000 codes in the database for those 56 values so that when we see a group of people that are over-indexing on belonging, we can say, and this is exactly what we mean when we say belonging in this case. So we know what we need to do, what has to be in place for those people to feel like belonging is present and is a value that they can act on.